Before we jump into this podcast, let's just have a first word from our sponsors, NordVPN, the fastest VPN in the world and an absolute essential travelling companion. You can use NordVPN on 10 devices with just one account, easily switching your virtual location to access apps and websites in other countries. But if you're out of the country, make sure that you've got NordVPN to be able to use your subscriptions and watch the live sport that you might miss. If you're at home, use it to see if you can save money with products that might be cheaper in another region. Go to nordvpn.com/Manchester to get 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. The link is also in the podcast description.
Hello and welcome to the Manchester's Red podcast from the Manchester Evening News. I'm Jack Flinton, and joining me today, looking very happy, is my colleague Steve Railston. Steve, how are we? What a day!
I'm probably only happy because I've had a good Sunday lunch, Jack, yesterday.
Oh, right. Oh, I see.
I'm joking. No, I wouldn't say we get happy with results. Obviously, it makes it more enjoyable when United win because the access is better, the views go up. It's a lot more positive, of course, but when there is a victory. So yeah, a lot of positivity today, which is way better to report on than negativity. How's yourself?
Definitely. Yes, all good actually. It was one of those where, you know, we'll get into it a bit more later on, but when Gakpo equalised, I did have this sort of sinking feeling for United that they were going to come away. It was another good performance, but come away with a draw. But obviously that moment towards the end was just perfect for United's perspective.
Yeah, huge result on Sunday afternoon. It could be a tenure defining result for Ruben Amorim. Fantastic to be there to watch that end of the game. There were some fantastic scenes at full time, some joyous scenes. When Maguire's headed goal went in, the staff had sprinted out onto the touchline almost, and were arms and legs were flying in the away section. United made the perfect start of the game within 2 minutes. Brian Mbeumo, brilliantly taking goal, combining with Ahmad really well. And I couldn't help but notice the banner in the Kop before the match, which said "Scousers rule the country," like we've always done before. Just a few minutes later, when Mbeumo scores at that end, and he's gesturing with his hands almost to say, "Are you not entertained?" It was a brilliant goal, and it kind of sent United on the way. If you open the scoring so early in the match, you really don't want to waste an opportunity like that. And it was really intense about the way they started that match. Ruben Amorim made some big changes. He made 2 changes from Sunderland. Obviously, with Harry Maguire, Matheus Cunha coming into the side. And I think before the game, I think maybe eyebrows were raised slightly because you thought, could United be toothless with reverting back to that strikerless front three? Amorim had picked Mbeumo, Mount and Cunha for the first 3 games of the season. And although they had looked well, which I touched upon in the preview podcast, and they combined well, they hadn't actually scored. So there was potential there for United to be a bit blunt, and that looked immediately stupid within 2 minutes of the game when Mbeumo scored that goal. So it was a fantastic start to the game, the dream start, and it was a huge opportunity from there on. I think it's fair to say they rode the luck at times. Liverpool created a lot of chances, but to go to Anfield and to leave with a win, you need a lot of quality, a lot of hard work, and you need a tad of fortune. And that's probably what United got on Sunday afternoon.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say about fortune. I mean, Cody Gakpo, he must have walked under a few ladders, stepped on a few black cats, I think, before the game, hitting the post 3 times. And obviously, you mentioned there briefly about the changes. I think we were expecting Maguire to come in, potentially not for Euro, though. Shaw keeping his place in the starting 11. And as you mentioned there, with Sesko coming out and Cunha coming in, I thought it was interesting pre-match. Arne Slot was he was almost confused. I think I wrote about this in one of our morning pieces. He seemed rather confused by United going for Sesko, and it just felt from that moment, even before a ball was kicked, that Amorim had got under his skin a bit.
It was a big decision, but it paid off. Yeah, and we'll come on to Slot complaining a bit later. I've got no time for that, but it wasn't a surprise. He's got form for that. So the decision to name Sesko on the bench was big, especially considering he'd scored 2 goals in his last 2 games and the approach against Sunderland, which we discussed in the preview podcast, was very effective. And I said multiple times, and I've written this as well, that I thought that United could use that long approach very effectively against Liverpool, who don't like when a team refuses to play into their hands. They don't like being dragged into a battle, and they don't like dealing with these kind of longer balls. And Slot kind of came out and said that after the game, and that's incredibly unfair. There was a lot of quality from United, some fantastic individual performances all over the pitch. There wasn't a bad performer at all. I think Dalot was probably the weakest performer in the first 45 minutes, but even Dalot ended the game with a strong performance, dealing with Gakpo and Salah quite well down his side. So some really, really performances to be proud of there. And Amorim has to have a lot of credit here. He's dealt with so much scrutiny, and he's had a lot of stake, and rightly so, in the first few weeks of the season. He explained that his team selection, he kind of relied on his gut to get it right. Well, maybe you should listen to his gut more often, because it delivered here at Anfield. The first manager to win at Anfield since 2016. United manager, of course, when Louis van Gaal oversaw that victory when Wayne Rooney scored. So it's been a long time for United to get a win at Anfield, a long time coming. And it probably made it even more special on Sunday afternoon. Like I say, some of the scenes at full time were fantastic. And that is the biggest win of Amorim's tenure so far. There's not been a lot of moments to kind of cling on to. There's perhaps been glimmers this season. Amorim has insisted that United have improved. We've probably not had enough evidence to back that up until now, because that performance was fantastic. And they must build on it now. That must be the turning point. Liverpool have got form for pushing United managers to the brink. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer lost his job shortly after losing against Liverpool. Erik ten Hag was sacked 3 weeks after losing 3-0 to Liverpool last season. Jose Mourinho was sacked 2 days after losing to Liverpool himself. Amorim is not going to be the next United manager, thankfully, to be sacked after facing Liverpool.
Yes, definitely. And we've mentioned there about how important it is for Amorim. I think it was also quite important for Harry Maguire to get that goal. I mean, there was a lot of talk pre-match about him missing a chance at Anfield when scores were level at 2-2, and we wouldn't have been talking about the near decade of lack of victories at Anfield if it hadn't been for that goal not going in. For him to pop up when the crowd was up and it felt like momentum was shifting, it's a huge moment for him, isn't it?
Well, it did feel like a goal had been coming from a Liverpool perspective to equalise. Obviously, they created lots of chances, but United defended fantastically well, and there was some brilliant performances in that back three. De Ligt, Shaw, Maguire were all really, really good. But then to go up the other side of the pitch, and as you see, when Liverpool scored, you're probably fearing the worst at that point, because as we touched upon in the preview podcast, they scored a lot of late goals this season. And I'd overheard a steward at half-time, a Liverpool steward, saying, "Don't worry." Obviously, United were up 1-0, saying, we'll score a late winner. So there was probably a sense of expectation there that Liverpool could still turn it around. The fans had seen it a lot this season. But for United to go up the other side of the pitch and to score through Harry Maguire, the ball into the box from Bruno Fernandes might actually go under the radar a bit, but it was fantastic. The technical ability to hit that into the box first time, to place it directly at the back post, that takes a lot of skill. Not a surprise for a player of Fernandez's quality. Fernandes was tremendous again, captain in United to their first win at Anfield for 9 years. But that ball in the box was great. And if you actually watch the replay, there were players queuing up at the back post to score there. It was Maguire, De Ligt and Dorgu who were ready to kind of put it in the back of the net. But if you're going to pick a player to get onto the end of a cross with the last few minutes of the game to potentially win the match, it would be Harry Maguire. He's had some fantastic moments for the club now. Obviously scored the winner in the semi-finals last season against Bilbao, which was fantastic. That was such a huge moment. Sorry, Leon, getting confused there. Can't forget that game against Leon. And he said, he spoke in the mix zone and he spoke about that. He spoke about some of the goals that he scored. And obviously he's into the last year of his contract now. And there's going to have to be a decision made on Maguire. And I actually think that he should be given a new deal. I think if he's given reduced terms, which will obviously be key, and he is happy to accept perhaps a reduced role in the squad, then I think there is a willingness from both parties to get a contract extension sorted there, a new deal for Maguire. His deal expires in June, but he's had some brilliant moments now, and to overcome what he had to deal with. Let's not forget when he visited Dublin in pre-season a few years back, he was jeered by quote-unquote United fans, and when he went to Australia, he was booed as well. He was a bit of a joke figure for 2 seasons. He did have 2 bad seasons, but he's actually had some very good campaigns as well. And to show the mental strength to overcome that spell is fantastic. And I think most players who dealt with that kind of scrutiny and struggled in the way Maguire did would have crumbled, and that would have been the end of them. But in 2025, we're almost in 2026, but Maguire's still at the football club, still producing big moments like this and still delivering. He really deserved that. It was a fantastic moment, and I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I caught it was Rio Ferdinand after the match. I don't know whether you saw this on social media. He spoke about whether Maguire was now entering into legendary status.
I avoid Rio Ferdinand's social media commentary.
Okay, well, to fill you in on that one, then, what would you say? It's hard, I think, personally, to necessarily label many of the United squad as legends, considering the period they've gone through. But I think if you're going to look at the ones who come out of this era with the most acclaim, you've got to say Maguire is up there just for the sort of the redemption arc he's managed to build for himself.
Yeah, I wouldn't go quite that far. I think Fernandes is the modern day legend, along with probably David De Gea, if you to go into that territory. But Maguire's goal against Lyon was a magical moment, and then to have that almost again, it's almost actually topped. I'm not sure which he will look back on with more fondness, because the Lyon moment was just tremendous. It was probably one of the best moments at Old Trafford for decades, and then to then produce this at Anfield. And Maguire said it actually had been sticking on his mind that United had not won at Anfield during his time at the club. It had hurt him a little bit. And it was interesting because he said he admitted that it could be his last visit to Anfield, obviously with it being his final year in his contract. So it remains to be seen what happens there with Maguire. But to overcome that period, and he's had 2 very good seasons now, his last 2 campaigns. He's now a fan favourite again. His name is sung on match days. It says a lot about his personality and his quality as well. He's a really important part of that dressing room.
Definitely. And just before we break off to refresh, the first goal, and Mbeumo and Amad linking up brilliantly. I mean, it was a case I saw with Matthias de Ligt spoke after the match about how they were looking to target the fullbacks. Saw that as Liverpool's weakness. It showed within 2 minutes. The play down that side was spectacular, wasn't it?
There's been some teething problems with Mbeumo and Amad in the first few weeks of the season. I think we saw that at Fulham, where they were probably getting in each other's way, and it was always going to take time to develop a relationship and to really gel and kind of understand where they need to be when they're overlapping or when the ball is being played in. But we saw that within 2 minutes there. That was fantastic. Fernandes deserves a lot of credit. Got his head up, played the pass. Amad's pass to Mbeumo in the box was perfectly weighted. That is not an easy pass to do. And then the desire from Mbeumo to actually make that run into the box. He actually ran past 2 Liverpool players to get into the box, including Van Dijk. So he probably won't want to watch that one back. It was a perfect goal in all aspects. And you looked at that moment when McAllister went down to the ground and he kind of touched his head a little bit, but Van Dijk made contact with McAllister. And I think Slot actually came out and complained about that. Again, another complaint from Arne Slot. Mona Slot should probably be nicknamed at this point. Liverpool can have no complaints with that. It was their own player making contact, and I think there was 8 seconds between the contact and the goal. So Michael Oliver isn't going to have time there to turn his back when he's watching the phase of play develop and look at Alexis McAllister. And even if he did, he shouldn't be stopping player because it's a contact with a Liverpool player. Could you imagine? In my opinion, that would be a bit of a scandal, wouldn't it? If a United goal is chalked off because a Liverpool player has made contact with a Liverpool player, you can't be penalised for a Liverpool player fouling his own teammate. So fantastic goal, and Amad and Mbeumo were brilliant all day. Down that side, Michael Oliver was actually having a good game until a certain point. He gave Ahmad a yellow card, which was shocking. Ahmad won the ball. He made direct contact with the ball, and he received the yellow card for that, and he was brought off. And I thought at the time that could have potential to hurt United because Ahmad had been so brilliant. Thankfully, it didn't in the end. But yeah, Ahmad was one of the standout performers for me. He had such a good game. It was a brave decision to start him at right wing back. I actually thought that it could have been Patrick Dorgu on the left and Diego Dalot on the right, just to provide some more defensive cover. Ahmad is all right going back, but we all know he's best in the final third, and going forward, that is where he has his most quality. So it was a statement of intent, I think, from Amram to start Ahmad, but it was vindicated. He had Kirkes on toast. I think Liverpool will be trying to find a receipt for Kirkes if they can after that performance. Kirkes will be having nightmares about Ahmad. He made him look like a fool all game. He had the beating of him every time. Whenever Ahmad received the ball, the away end roared because they sensed something would happen, and it looked like something would happen whenever Ahmad touched it. And he combined with Mbeumo brilliantly. But he should have had another assist as well. He obviously played that fantastic pass to Bruno Fernandes, who just hit the post at the Kop. And Fernandes put his hands on his head, probably understanding that miss might have had consequences later in the game. That was a chance to make it 2-0 to United at that point, and that would have helped enormously. It wasn't to be, but thankfully it didn't have consequences, and United won the game regardless.
Yeah, and I just wonder with Ahmad whether this is now his sort of chance. There's going to be a lot of players we speak about today who have got this chance now to push on and really do well at United. I just wonder for Ahmad, whose season has been okay, but nothing, to write home about, whether this is his sort of turning point and he can move on, because obviously he was played a lot in that number 10 role last season.
You probably wouldn't have watched him as much as I have, Jack, but last season he was fantastic until his ankle injury in February. He was in contention to win the Player of the Year award, and in fact I think he actually might have won the award if not for picking up the ankle injury in February. Some brilliant performances, goals at Manchester City, Anfield, a hat-trick against Southampton as well at Old Trafford. So he was the talisman really in that dressing room at a certain stage. It says a lot that Ruben Amorim believes he can really excel in that right wing back role. He's got rid of a few wingers now at the club, but he sees Ahmad as a good fit for that role. I've probably had my reservations at times, wondering whether he is best in a number 10 position and whether he will be a long-term success at right wing back. But if Mbeumo and Ahmad can play together like they did against Liverpool, those doubts, they won't exist anymore. They'll look very stupid because they combined really, really well at Anfield. They were fantastic and they were key to the win.
Definitely. Well, we're going to take a short break there and join us again shortly. Right, welcome back. So we've touched on it briefly in the first part. It'll be interesting now. We're going to let you off the reins a little bit here, Steve, to talk about the sending it long approach, as Slot christened it in his post-match team talk, his post-match press conference, I should say. What did you make of that? I mean, yes, it was an aspect of United's game, but as you've mentioned, it wasn't their defining characteristic.
Well, this isn't the first time that Arne Morner Slot has made such a comment. I think he really dislikes when a team, as I said, refuses to play into Liverpool's hands. He'd much prefer a team like Southampton last season, who would rock up to Anfield, try have 60-70% possession, try compete with Liverpool in that sense, but inevitably roll over and lose 5-0. And then he would come out and he'd probably say, Russell Martin, he's a manager for the future. He's fantastic. He'll be at Real Madrid. And look what's just happened at Rangers. You've got to give yourself the best chance of winning the game by adapting your tactics to the opposition. And Ruben Amorim did that brilliantly. Slot was outfought by Amorim. Amorim oversaw a tactical masterclass really at Anfield, I think. And the decision to go along against Sunderland and kind of be direct, work the treat, it was really effective. And again, it was used against Liverpool. And I thought myself that would be the key to getting a result. If you're trying to play out the back, Liverpool have got fantastic forwards who are brilliant at pressing. That goes back to the days when they had Mane and alongside Salah. They've kind of maintained that ethos and that approach in the years since Mane left to join Bayern Munich, and they've got some wonderful players. Gakpo is a really good presser of the ball. They will put you under pressure. They will not mess around when you have it at the back. but United preferred to go long. And that was a surprise, actually, in a way, because obviously Sesko was moved to the bench. So United didn't have that focal point. They had Mount, Kuna and Mbeumo. But what was the difference at Anfield was the ability to win the second balls. It was, I can't remember a United game when they won so many second balls in that area. And to win any match, especially at Anfield, like I say, we're always going to have to be perfect in every area. But that was huge. That was decisive. Winning that many second balls, competing and scrapping for the duels, and the long approach worked a treat. It's so refreshing to see a goalkeeper do that. To see Senna Lomans picking up his head and sending the ball long. We've seen it for many years in the Premier League now, where it's become stylish. And I've said before, I'm actually a fan of that style of football. But there's no perfect way for football. There's no right way for football to be played. United got their plan bang on. Lomans' kicking was key to that. And I actually asked them when I spoke to Lomans myself in the mix zone whether that was an approach, because he said something that kind of suggested that might have been his decision, but he clarified that it was a team decision, of course, that Amram had passed on those instructions. It was agreed with the staff and the team that that's what would happen. But I think when fans are watching that game, it lowers their stress levels to see Lomans send the ball long, and it releases pressure and helps United get up the pitch. So incredibly refreshing. Not a surprise that Slot complained, because that's what he does. But unfortunately, he'll have to deal with it, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned about Lomans. I'm watching him. Obviously, we didn't want to look too much into his performance against Sunderland, albeit they've started the season well. They got another victory this weekend. This was always going to be a different kettle of fish, wasn't it? Going to Liverpool and Anfield, and the atmosphere, and you could sense it was heightened, as it always is between these two teams. He looked incredibly calm, composed. He inspired confidence to the backline, didn't he?
That's exactly what he does. And I think he's only had 2 appearances for the football club now. But what an impact he has made in those 2 appearances. The Sunderland debut was fantastic. He kept the clean sheet, made some important saves. The crowd loved it, obviously chanting, "Are you Peter Schmeichel in disguise?" And I actually spotted when the teams arrived at Anfield, Schmeichel was down in the tunnel and kind of embraced with Lomans, and it was almost if to say good luck. And the camera panned to Schmeichel in the press box at one point, pardon me, when Lomans made a save. He made a very good save to deny Alexander Isak in the first half with his feet, almost David De Gea-esque. And I think there was a sense of expectation from the terraces when Isak was sent through. You don't often see him miss too much from those areas, but Lomans made himself big and stopped it with his feet. He was equal to the effort, and even the effort from Mo Salah at the Kop in the second half. Obviously shooting from very close range, and you'd expect Mo Salah to put those away. That's what he's built his name off, scoring chances like that. And he sent it wide. And Lomans obviously didn't save it, but to rush out and to make himself big, he's got such a presence. He's a big lad. He's not small, and he uses his body very well. He's aggressive in his movements. He's got a presence, and that's so crucial as a goalkeeper. And although it wasn't a fantastic shot stopping display, he only made a few saves. You probably couldn't write a lot about that, but it was still another very, very strong display. And to do that for your second game for the football club at 23 years old bodes incredibly well for the future. I asked him, Senna, I said, was that the biggest game of your career? And he said, yeah, easily so far. He said his social media has been blowing up, unsurprisingly, since joining the club. And what I will say about him as a person, he seems obviously we only spoke to him for 6 minutes or so, but having watched interviews from his first few weeks at the club, his unveiling interview, and speaking to a former coach at Club Brugge who worked for him, and then speaking to him in the Anfield mix zone after the game, he seems an incredibly intelligent player. Naturally, not everyone in the dressing room or not every footballer is incredibly intelligent, but he seems very switched on. He seems like he knows his stuff, and he's got a very good personality from what I can tell. And Harry Maguire actually said that in his post-match interview. He said, I don't want to get carried away about Lomans, but he's shown us all the right things, and his personality is fantastic. And it's a bit reductive to suggest just saying good personalities is the way to improve, but there's definitely something in that. having a know something heads policy can help you at a football club. And Lommans is clearly a great personality to have in the dressing room, but more importantly than that, he's made a huge difference on the pitch. And yeah, his presence and the confidence that he transmits to the team is huge. And obviously he did concede, there was no clean sheet, but he won't care about that. He said he was going to celebrate by I think one of his close friends was at the game, so he said they'd enjoy their night and get back to it. But along with the other players, he reiterated really that this has to be the turning point. And I mentioned that obviously in my first section for Ruben Amorim, this was the first time to win back-to-back Premier League games. It's been a long time coming, and what a way to do it. I said that a few days ago, that it would be an unbelievable way to do it, to end that record, which has been a stick to beat Amorim with, to do it at Anfield against Liverpool, United's biggest rivals, would be fantastic. And they managed it. So again, just a special result, really. There'll be chance created about Maguire's winner, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You can see the lyrics writers are already on that one for Saturday. One player who I think we were both marginally surprised to see him start was Casemiro, and we spoke on Friday. He'd had a very busy October international break with Brazil over in Asia. He did really well, I thought, coming on and playing as long as he did, considering the sort of intense schedule that he was under.
The expectation was that Casemiro might be on the bench because he'd made those treks to Japan and South Korea, and maybe that Man Utd would be in midfield alongside Bruno Fernandes. But Casemiro has become very important again, because it probably says more about Ugarte than Casemiro, but Casemiro has been very good and Ugarte has been pretty disappointing. So when you put those two together, it probably wasn't a surprise that Amorim went with Casemiro regardless of his work load during the international break. He obviously came off in the second half, but what a performance from Casemiro. I think he really used his experience. They really demonstrated it in a few moments. There was at one stage he stopped Liverpool from taking a quick free kick. He used his body quite intelligently to win fouls and break up play, give United a breather when they needed it during the match. So his experience shone through. He's now 33 years old, and I've actually had to think to myself in the car on the way back, and this is clearly recency bias, but I had written a piece about Maguire and offering him a new contract a few days ago, and there will be conversations now around whether Casemiro should be given a new deal because he's in the same situation. His contract ends at the end of the year. There is the option to extend it by a year, which is the difference. Obviously, Maguire's 1-year extension was extended in January. I'd still be in favour of extending Maguire's contract as it stands and letting Casemiro go. I don't think you can kind of factor the start of the season in the recency bias of his performances, and obviously United had been poor until this result. There've been some good moments from Casemiro, some not some good moments, but he was excellent at Anfield. I think he just needs to end his time at the club on a high, and if he can help United get back into the Champions League, help them move back up to the table, perform like he did in his first season, that'll be a brilliant way to end his time at the football club. It'd be really fitting for him because he's had a wonderful career. He is a winner. He is a big leader in that dressing room still, and he can still perform when he's at his best. And I think fair dues to Casemiro, because to perform like that after playing 90 minutes twice during the international break says a lot about him. And I think the club had put up a little snippet with him during the international break about kind of how he prepares for matches and stuff like that. There's, physically in the work he does in the gym. And there's been times at the club where Casemiro's returned from pre-season and not looked physically at his peak levels. But I think that was different this summer. I think he looked ready to go, and he's probably reaping the benefits of that now. We're in October and the season's up and running, because that was a great performance yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. And you've just got to hope for him. I'd be shocked, I think, if he was to leave United and that'd be the end of his career. Whether it's the end of his career in Europe is probably a different question to ask, but it would be, as you say, good to see him sort of end on a high and leave a good taste.
Get United back into the Champions League, leave the club on a high, go back to Brazil and enjoy his barbecues because he loves a barbecue. So that'd be a fantastic way to end. And
That sounds like a good way of spending your days.
he deserves plenty of burgers and sausages and steaks after that performance because he was really good.
Definitely. And just to touch on finally, one area we haven't really spoken about. I mean, we've mentioned about Maguire, but that back three, I mean, it came under an assault from the hosts in the second half, particularly. They were really chucking men forward, but they shone through in the end, didn't they? It was a solid display and probably helped by Larmans' performance behind him.
Lomans and the kind of the defensive group all celebrated wildly after the full-time whistle, rushed to each other to embrace. Maguire, De Ligt and Shaw started the game. Obviously, they were fantastic. And there's been some question marks around Shaw this season. His performance against Manchester City was really disappointing. But again, I will stress collectively as a team, United were poor. But I think Shaw was singled out for a lot of criticism. He responded to that by performing really well against Chelsea. And then he's built on that again yesterday by performing brilliantly against Liverpool. He marshalled their players really well, kept Alexander Isak quiet, which isn't an easy job to do. Okay, I know he's had a poor start, but he was signed for 125 million in the summer window from Newcastle, of course, at Liverpool. So the amount of attacking talent that Liverpool had on the pitch, and again, yeah, okay, you could probably say that United rode the luck at times. On another day, Liverpool probably would have scored more. But you've got to make your own luck, and you earn that from working hard, being tenacious, doing the right things out of possession. And United did that all afternoon. The back three were crucial to that. Shaw was brilliant. Maguire stood up again, as mentioned. And as I said, I think De Ligt, I did player ratings with mid-season player ratings with David. Well, not even mid-season, but player ratings so far, just to give ourselves something to talk about during the international break. And De Ligt, I think I said, was probably my standout performer of this season. He's the only United player to play every Premier League minute so far. He's been so good. And I think there was question marks again last season, a mixed bag, because he'd come from Bayern Munich and fans questioned whether Bayern would let go a player of high quality. Would they really want to sell him for United for such a reasonable fee? It was around £35 million. There were some good moments, some not some good moments as well from De Ligt in his first season, but we're really starting to see a body of consistent work now from De Ligt. He's really delivering those performances each week, and that has to be the key to be regarded as a top player, to win the plaudits. You have to do it week in, week out, and I think De Ligt's done that. I saw a stat actually. I think it was who's won the most challenges defenders this season. I think De Ligt was at the top, which kind of backs up the visual impression that he's given. I think the data will show that he is performing really well. He's in a really good vein of form. And when he's playing like that, it really helps that back three. But again, Lomans is crucial to that as well, because when you've got a goalkeeper behind you that's playing with confidence, that commands his area, that's being aggressive in his box, that really helps the back three. And I think that defense now is looking incredibly solid, especially with Lenny Yoro, who was obviously introduced later on in the game. Yoro, Maguire, Shaw and De Ligt, and there's obviously more players there who can fill in. Aiden Heaven, for example. They're incredibly strong options to have, and perhaps Lomans was the missing piece of the jigsaw there behind them, because having a goalkeeper who is competent is really important, and having a goalkeeper who makes mistakes can make you uneasy at the back and maybe give you a moment of hesitation that could be costly, and that can creep into your performances. So Lomans has probably helped that back three enormously. But they all deserve credit because they were all, again, really, really good on Sunday afternoon at Anfield.
Definitely, and you touched on it in the first half, and it's probably best to end it with it. This has to be a turning point, doesn't it, for United now?
Yeah, and that was the common denominator when we spoke to the players in the mix zone. Dalot, Lomans and Maguire all took time to speak, and I think looking at some of their post-match interviews as well, did Cunha speak as well, I think, and I think everyone has said that. Ruben Amorim said it in his press conference. Look, it's took so long to get back-to-back league wins. We're almost approaching one month away from the 1 year anniversary of Amorim's appointment, so it's almost been a year, which is not good enough. But I think after the Brentford game, I think some of the reaction probably went a bit too far. I tried to remain very level-headed myself in my analysis. It was a clear setback. It was a very bad result, especially after winning against Chelsea. You thought that was a fantastic opportunity to get back-to-back league wins and build some consistency and move up the table. And obviously with Sunderland after that, they could have potentially have strung 3 wins together there and then entered the international break on a real high. That didn't happen, but some of the conversation around Ruben Amorim really started again after the Brentford game. Perhaps the extent of it was unfair. Sunday was huge for Amorim. It really was. There'll be no chatter about his system if you can continue to get results like this. And it worked a treat against Liverpool, who were the Premier League champions. And okay, they had lost 3 games before this match, and they were licking their wounds slightly. But the quality they have on the pitch, they have the strongest squad in the league for me. Probably better than Arsenal, and definitely better than Manchester City. So to go there and get a result was outstanding for Amorim. Huge for him as a manager, huge for his time at the club, and it'll be huge for his standing among supporters. There's no doubts that fans and journalists alike were all having doubts, and I probably thought after that Brentford game, I probably thought to myself that I didn't think it was going to work, but I was reluctant to outright say he should be sacked, because I still thought he should be given more time at that point. I thought United had come that far, they'd backed them in the summer, made some important signings. And I thought it was worth giving them at least a few more weeks and giving them some more time and patience to show what he can do. And Sunday was a real example of that. So we need to see more of it, though. We need to see more wins like that. It's Brighton on Saturday evening at Old Trafford. That is a different test because it's a kind of lower team, although Brighton have done fantastically well in the Premier League over the last few years, and they've got an excellent record against United, but they're not traditionally a big club either, like Liverpool. The 5:30 kickoff should help United. It's under the lights, so that should help get them going. But now they have to really keep momentum and build something here, because to waste a performance like that, if they go in and turn a bad performance against Brighton and lose, that would just be a real setback. And again, the questions would start to be asked of Amorim, especially after a result like that. They need to build on it. They need to string 4 or 5 wins together on the bounce. You're expected to do that at a club like this, and that is the key to moving up the table. Europe was the goal at the start of the season. The situation was clearly salvageable. I can't speak today. Get my mouth words correct. After a few bad results, so it clearly could have turned it around. And on the evidence of Sunday afternoon, maybe Ruben Amorim will turn the Reds around.
Yeah, definitely, and it'll be an interesting one when we preview it on Friday. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me today. Obviously, you can keep up to date with all the latest Manchester United news on the Manchester Evening News website. But until Friday, we'll see you then.